Hey there, Maverick. I am so glad you're here. Welcome to episode 9. Let's dig into the big dreams, bold moves, and the million lessons along the way. Remember, this is our check-in, just you and me crafting and claiming a life that is fully yours. Today, I want to talk about the topic of time. Last episode, we talked about this work-life balance or work-life integration, which I do think is an important conversation to have. Obviously, if you didn't see it, go back to episode 8. But what I want to talk about today is just this idea of time. Probably the thing I hear the most often, more than anything else, something along the line is, I don't know how you do it all. Or maybe it sounds something like, I'm exhausted just watching you. Or I don't know how you squeeze so many things into a day. Something like that. And I know it's said out of love, but most of the time when someone says it, it's because maybe they've been following me on social media or they've heard about the traveling I've been doing, and it just does not align with their life. And it always strikes me a little bit weird because we don't really know what each other's life looks like. Yes, there's social media, which I feel like is a highlight reel, but there's so much more to that. And truly, it all comes down to time. I know you've probably heard it before. It's a little bit cliche, but we all have the same 24 hours. And I don't have any more time than anyone else has. But it all comes down to how we choose to spend that time and often the sacrifices we make for the time that we have. And when I say sacrifices, oftentimes that sounds like something really dramatic or something that's, we're depriving ourselves from something. But I think of sacrificing as a different way. For one example, I did a little bit of research, and the average American spends 3 hours a day watching TV. So if you think about that, 3 hours a day, on average, so some are way more, some are obviously less, but if you multiply that over a year, that's well over 1,000 hours that are spent that year watching TV. And I'm not against TV. I think there's several ways to unwind and to relax, and it's honestly something I'm trying to get better at. But if I think about that 1,000 hours, and if someone really took that 1,000 hours and looked at it that way, didn't look at it just from, it's just 5 to 8 at night or just as I'm going to bed, but really looked at, if I had the gift of 1,000 hours just given to me this year, if someone said, I'm going to give you 1,000 extra hours to do whatever you want, and people really had a chance to, with intention, think about that. And think about, do they want to learn how to play piano? Do they want to learn how to speak Spanish? Do they want to get their private pilot's license? Like, what do they want to do with that time? TV has never been a priority of mine ever since I was a little kid. My younger sister Jill used to love watching movies, especially Disney movies, and she would play a movie literally on repeat. This was back in the days of VHS tapes, and I remember one of them being that Aladdin movie, The Return of Jafar. It was like the second or third Aladdin movie, and I remember she just loved that movie. She was probably like 6 or 7 years old. But she would watch the movie. As soon as it got over, she would rewind it and hit play again. And she would do that 3 or 4 times or until someone said, no more. We had one TV in our house, and somebody, probably my dad, would need to take the TV and watch a Royals baseball game or something. But I never understood that. And I think it just drove me nuts hearing that same music and the same words, and also just being wired so different. I would always think about what she could be doing with this time. And realizing now that's a little bit of this Maverick brain, this brain that's wired differently, that has a really, really hard time sitting still and watching a movie even to this day. But I also am grateful that whether it was being turned off by Jill watching the same movies over and over, whether it's a little bit of my lack of being tech savvy, sometimes if I can't figure out the remote or a streaming station, I just give up and turn the TV off. I don't know exactly how it is, but I know that for me, sacrificing TV has given me time that I could not get any other way. It always amazes me when I'm with a group of friends and they say, oh, have you seen this show? Have you seen this show? Have you seen this series? And say, oh yeah, I watched that series. I binge watched it start to finish, all 9 episodes. And I just think, oh my goodness, 9 episodes. I started doing the math, an hour a piece. Let's say there's 8 episodes per season. And I just think of that time, that precious time that we have. and what else could be done with that time. So for me, that's really how I see it. I look at other ways of saving time. I also look at my day really carefully. I have learned that for myself, my brain works best in the morning, first thing in the morning. I oftentimes wake up with ideas at 4 a.m., sometimes 3:30, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and I can't stay in bed. I've learned that the faster I just get out of bed, the better I feel. If I lay there and try to go back to sleep, it never serves me well. So I know that my brain is most active, most alive, most clear first thing in the morning. And if I can act on that and really capitalize those first couple hours, I get more done than most could imagine. Then I also have learned to give myself grace. So I also know that around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, my brain really isn't very clear. So if that's a time of day that I'm trying to record a podcast or write an email or create a quote or create new content, I just get really fumbly and I fumble over my words and things. I just can't get things complete the way that I would first thing in the morning. And so it's not that I necessarily work from 4 a.m. till 5 p.m., but it's that I know and I prioritize when my brain is the sharpest, when things come the easiest. If you've ever heard of something called flow state, it's when I can get into flow. For me, what flow state means is that it's a state that you can get in where it just kind of disappears, where things move quickly, things move effortlessly. I picture flow state as moving down the stream, getting in a kayak and moving with the stream downhill with ease and grace and with so much fun. For me, when I try to work at 5 o'clock, it's literally like paddling upstream. So some people might think that I work more hours than others, which in some ways I probably do. But in other ways, I think I've really mastered my time. I've mastered my mornings. And whether that's working out or writing or podcasting, I know those precious hours I can't get back. Not because it adds more hours to the day, but because the clarity that those hours bring to me. So I also usually get kind of a bit of a fire under me late at night, maybe around 8 to 9 at night. I'll have another idea and I might do another hour sprint, especially if the kids are all off doing their own things or in their rooms for the night. But I have found these little windows that to me almost condense time, almost make time stand still in a way. So while we all have the same 24 hours, I would really encourage you to think about the time of day that works best for you. Think about the time of day that you just feel like you're on your A game, the time of day that you feel like your brain, those connectors are just shooting that much faster. And then I also would encourage you to stand up for your own schedule, stand up for your own way of life. When people tell me, I don't know how you do it, it's exhausting just to watch you. I think I used to take a lot of offense to that. And I used to think, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I shouldn't post as much on social media because I don't want to make people feel bad. Or, it's almost this awkward conversation, or I don't want people to feel like they're not doing enough after they see my social media. I don't know. It's always been this little dilemma of mine of maybe I need to play small. Maybe I need to not talk about my accomplishments or not talk about what I did today because I don't want someone else to feel less than or feel like it's a comparison game. But I really had to go to the root of that and know that I'm not comparing. I'm really not. I don't expect other people to work at my pace. I don't expect other people to be up at 4 a.m. with me. I actually don't want people to be up at 4 a.m. with me. That's actually a pretty sacred time of day for me where I like the quiet. I like to be able to move at my own pace uninterrupted. And so I feel like that was a fairly new revelation though for me, is that when people say, I'm exhausted just watching you, I can give a little smile, but I don't have to justify. I don't have to justify how I took a break in the afternoon. Or I don't have to justify how I took all day Sunday off and went to the park with my family. Or I don't have to justify that part of that work trip was also fun, seeing a friend that I haven't seen in years. It's not a comparison game. And honestly, I think sometimes people just don't know what to say. We don't know each other's lives well, and so all we can do is go off the highlight reel that we see online. So today what I'm going to challenge myself with, and challenge you with as well if you're up for it, is to really get to know someone's story, get to know someone's life a step deeper. So that when you do run into that person, you can ask them a question. You can say something that is inquisitive and that's deep. You can maybe ask them, what was your favorite part of this trip? Or how has your life changed since meeting this person? Or what would you do differently if you could do this month over? Asking questions that have depth to them. Instead of that surface level, it's exhausting just watching you. Because that comment doesn't serve a purpose besides maybe bringing some shame or some doubt, or again, playing this comparison game that's not worth playing. So for me, a couple easy things is I've really cut out TV out of my life. I'll watch movies with family or friends, but just binge watching TV is not for me. Those 3 hours a day I put into creation because that's what I love more than anything. And if I can do that creation first thing in the morning, I'm truly floating downriver with ease and joy and fun, laughing all the way down. So we all have the same 24 hours, but I would challenge you today to look at how you're spending yours. Make small tweaks if you can. And I'd love to continue this conversation. You can always find me on Instagram at @JulietWright. But until then, I really enjoyed this time together. This is episode 9, which is hard to believe. Thank you for listening. And I would encourage you to make sure to go out there and create, claim, and conquer this life you are here to live. And always remember, I have your back.